Have you ever looked back at your relationships and realized the same type of person keeps showing up in your life? Different face, different name, same emotional chaos. Maybe it's the friend who constantly drains your energy, but somehow makes you feel guilty for pulling away. Maybe it's the partner who starts off charming, intense, and exciting, but slowly turns manipulative, cold, or controlling. Or maybe it's people who only seem to appear when they need something from you. And after enough heartbreak, disappointment, or betrayal, you start asking the dangerous question, why does this keep happening to me? Now, most people think attracting toxic people means you're weak, unlucky, or naive. But Carl Jung believed something much deeper was happening beneath the surface. Because according to Jung, the people we attract are often mirrors of parts of ourselves we haven't fully faced yet. And that's where things get uncomfortable. See, toxic people rarely enter our lives wearing warning labels. They don't arrive saying, "Hi, I'm here to manipulate you and destroy your peace." No, they usually arrive disguised as exactly what we've been craving. Love, attention, validation, rescue, excitement, understanding. That's why intelligent people still fall into toxic relationships. It's not about intelligence, it's about unconscious patterns. Imagine someone who grew up constantly trying to earn love. Maybe their parents were emotionally distant. Maybe affection only came when they achieved something or behaved perfectly. Without realizing it, they carry that emotional blueprint into adulthood. So when they meet someone emotionally unavailable, it doesn't feel strange. It feels familiar. And familiarity is dangerous because the brain often mistakes it for safety. That's why some people keep chasing relationships that hurt them. A part of them is unconsciously trying to fix an old emotional wound through a new person. Jung believed that until we make the unconscious conscious, it controls our lives, and we call it fate. Think about that for a second. What if the toxic people in your life aren't random accidents, but signals? Signals pointing towards something unresolved inside you. Now, this doesn't mean toxic behavior is your fault. Let's make that clear. Manipulation, abuse, betrayal, those are choices toxic people make. But Jung's idea is that we often unknowingly leave the emotional door unlocked. And one of the biggest reasons is something called the shadow. The shadow is the part of yourself you hide, suppress, or deny. The emotions, needs, insecurities, and traits you don't fully accept. For example, maybe you were taught that being selfish is bad, so you became the overly giving person, always available, always sacrificing, always understanding. Sounds noble, right? But here's the problem. When you suppress healthy selfishness, meaning boundaries, self-respect, and saying no, you become vulnerable to people who exploit that weakness. Toxic people often look for those who struggle with boundaries because boundaries are obstacles to control. And the scary part is, at first, being needed can feel good. It makes you feel valuable, important, wanted. So you tolerate behavior you normally shouldn't. You excuse red flags because you're attached to the emotional role you're playing. The rescuer, the fixer, the understanding one. But eventually, the relationship becomes emotionally exhausting, and deep down, you know something feels wrong. Yet, you stay. Why? Because another hidden fear appears. The fear of abandonment. Many people would rather remain in painful relationships than face loneliness, so they shrink themselves to keep people around. They stay quiet about disrespect. They over-explain. They tolerate emotional chaos. They keep giving second chances to people who never truly change. And over time, they lose themselves completely. Jung warned that what we refuse to confront within ourselves eventually appears externally in our lives. In other words, the more disconnected you are from your own worth, the easier it becomes for toxic people to define your worth for you. And toxic people are masters at this. At first, they idealize you. They make you feel special, chosen, different from everyone else. But slowly, they begin controlling the emotional temperature of the relationship. One day, they're warm and affectionate. The next day, they're cold and distant. And suddenly, you find yourself emotionally addicted to their approval. It becomes less about love and more about emotional survival. That's why toxic relationships can feel almost impossible to leave. Your nervous system becomes trapped in cycles of reward and pain. It's like gambling emotionally. You keep hoping the good version of them will come back. But Jung believed real healing begins the moment you stop asking, why are they like this? And start asking, why am I accepting this? That question changes everything, because now the focus returns to you, your wounds, your patterns, your emotional unmet needs. And this is where people usually misunderstand healing. Healing isn't becoming colder. It isn't learning to trust nobody. It isn't turning emotionally unavailable yourself. Real healing is developing awareness. Awareness of your triggers, awareness of your boundaries, awareness of the emotional patterns running your life behind the scenes. For example, healthy love often feels calm, but if someone grew up surrounded by emotional chaos, calmness can actually feel boring to them. So they unconsciously gravitate toward intensity instead of stability. They confuse anxiety for chemistry. They mistake emotional unpredictability for passion. And this happens more than people realize. Sometimes, the reason you attract toxic people isn't because they're hunting you specifically. It's because healthy people notice the lack of boundaries and quietly step back, while toxic people see it as an invitation. That sentence alone changes how you see relationships, because suddenly attraction becomes less mysterious. Your energy teaches people how to treat you. If you constantly overextend yourself to earn love, some people will happily let you. If you avoid conflict at all costs, some people will push your limits endlessly. If you don't believe you deserve respect, you'll keep negotiating with disrespect. And this is why self-awareness is powerful. The moment you truly recognize your patterns, toxic dynamics become easier to spot. You stop romanticizing emotional chaos. You stop confusing attention for care. You stop trying to save people who enjoy drowning you with them. And perhaps most importantly, you stop abandoning yourself just to avoid being abandoned by someone else. That might be the most important lesson Jung tried to teach. Because people who know themselves deeply become harder to manipulate. Not because they're perfect, but because they're conscious. They notice when something feels off. They trust their intuition. They no longer ignore red flags just because someone is attractive, charming, or emotionally intense. And slowly, their relationships change. Not because the world suddenly became full of better people, but because they stopped emotionally volunteering for suffering. So if you keep attracting toxic people, don't just ask what's wrong with them. Ask yourself, what pain inside me still believes this is what love looks like? That question may hurt, but it might also set you free. Because the goal isn't to become someone who never gets hurt. The goal is to become someone who no longer betrays themselves trying to keep others. And once that happens, toxic people lose their power over you. Because they can only manipulate the version of you that's desperate for validation, not the version that finally understands their own worth. If this video resonated with you, let me know in the comments. Have you ever realized you were repeating the same relationship pattern without noticing it? And if you enjoy deep psychology and self-awareness content inspired by thinkers like Carl Jung, make sure to like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one.